Leaving the Sea of Galilee behind them, Jesus took the disciples up to the mountains, and others went also. Here there was a house providing warmth and shelter, so they waited a while, it being the time of preparation for sowing. One cold night, Jesus went out from the room where they sat at food to relieve a man guarding the donkeys, so he might come in and warm himself. Later, when the man returned to his charges, he found Jesus shivering, for he had placed his cloak around a foal. The man said, "Adonai, why do you do this? But seeing you have done it, why does not our father provide a mantle for his son?" Jesus said, "The little one is helpless in our hands, but we are not helpless in the Father's hand. The foal has no choice but to remain in the stall, while I can choose to go or to stay, to keep my covering or to give it to another. If Yahweh voided the effects of our good deeds, what merit would they have?" The man said, "I will pray Elohim to make me good, even as you." To which Jesus said, "Pray that your deeds merit the reward of goodness." Another night, a journeyman came, seeking shelter and warmth, and was given hospitality. He said to those who made him welcome, "You are blessed indeed to live here in warmth and comfort, while I must ride the inhospitable roads for my master." The next morning, having been well provided with sustenance for the road, he said to Jesus, Here he departed, "Adonai, I listened well to your words last night. Since I'm a poor man, suffering many hardships, and my life is difficult, am I then assured of better conditions in the life to come?" Jesus said, "By what standards do you think these things are judged? Using yours, the pack horse accompanying you would be more entitled to this type of assurance. For while you ate soup and you slept in comfort and warmth, this uncomplaining beast, whose lot is much harder than yours, remained neglected in the cold." Towards the end of their stay, a wise man came to eat with them, one knowing all the books of wisdom and the Torah. While talking with the disciples, he said, "Because of my knowledge, I am a man of no mean position, and many men are silent before me when weighty discussions are being had." Jesus, overhearing this, said, "Take no credit for yourself concerning your knowledge. Compare yourself to a borrower who has a debt to repay. Because the borrower, does the borrower receive credit for repaying what he has borrowed? Therefore, take no credit for the wisdom you dispense. And as the acquisition of knowledge, is this not the end for which you were created?" When this man had departed, Jesus said to his disciples, "The books of wisdom should be the treasure of all men, for they contain the explanations and instructions of Yahweh. When men say, 'Woe, because I am smitten with calamity. Why does Elohim let disaster strike me in this manner? Or why is my lot in life unlike that of others?' Be sure they have not unlocked the door of their treasure house. By reading the books of wisdom, you will be brought to an understanding of the nature and intention of Elohim, and life will then have meaning and purpose. Without them, you can be likened to a man at sea in a fair wind, but lacking sail and oars, and reading them but lacking guidance or understanding, you could be like a man at sea with sail and oars but without the ability to use them. A disciple, one who had been with John, asked, "Adonai, tell us which is true. John taught the way of the wilderness, and he said, 'Be the best of men, and let Elohim take care of his kingdom, for you are the rulers of earth.' Yet at other times he told us to wait for the coming of one who would deliver us from the evils of this world and show us the path of righteousness." Jesus said, "If you knew a distinguished guest was coming, would you not make fitting preparations, doing all things to ensure an appropriate welcome? If a man has many servants, does he thresh his own grain? The road indicated by John is not my road, but it leads to the same destination. I bring you the way of the stake, which is the stake of life. Follow what I teach, and you will be with me at the end. Choose your path, for no man can plow two furrows, neither can the hands of two men hold the reins." While Jesus was still in the mountains preparing his disciples for the task ahead, two wandering musicians came by, and one was always laughing, and the other was always melancholy. Jesus said to them, "Many men, having differing skills, and are you not skilled with the lute and the lyre?" They said, "That is so." And Jesus said, "Now when the strings of your instruments are too tight, what happens?" They replied, "Then there is discord." And Jesus said, "Is it not even so if the strings are too slack?" And they replied, "It is." Then Jesus said, "Sometimes the natures of men need slackening, for they are too tight, while sometimes they are too slack. Be like your instruments, always tuned to the right note, and let there be harmony between you." One of the disciples said to Jesus, "Adonai, you tell us many things, and I cannot retain all your words. Surely some are better than others. Which one should I put into my heart?" Jesus said this, "A sovereign had 2 castles, one at each end of a wall guarding his kingdom, and he gave each of his 2 sons command over a castle. When word came that an enemy approached, he ordered his sons to collect all kinds of provender and store it. One son collected everything that he could, but the other took only what he considered to be the best, leaving everything else. The enemy came. Both castles were besieged. The castle of one son fell when its supplies ran out, but the other held out by utilizing what the other had rejected. So it is with my words. Even those which may seem of least value may one day prove their worth." The disciples then said, "Tell us where we may find Yahweh and the truth." Jesus said, "You have the holy books and my words." Turning to the others, he said, "This man is like a beggar. All his life he stood under a fig tree. More than anything else, he desired to be rich. But he remained always poor and dressed in rags. Like all men, he came to his hour of death, and those who buried him dug his grave at that very place where he had been spending his life. When the earth under the tree was dug up, it exposed a treasure of great price, gold and jewels, right under the spot where he had been standing and begging. How easy it could have been for that man to be rich." One of those to whom Jesus spoke said this, then all we have to do is read and listen, assimilating the knowledge gained. Then Jesus said, there is even danger in this. Consider a snake catcher going among the rocks. He sees a snake well worth catching, but in his haste he grabs it by the tail instead of biting behind the head. So it turns and it bites him, causing his death. Did he die because of his calling, or because he grabbed the snake wrong? Was he not wrong in his approach rather than in what he did? It is even so with those who know the holy books from end to end but handle them wrong. Jesus said, be humble in your knowledge and not puffed up, but beware the snare of false humility. One then said to him, Adonai, what is false humility? Jesus said, a man was once told that if he could learn humility, he would become perfect. In desiring perfection in himself above everything else, he diligently studied everything relating to humility. And then there was nothing about it he did not know. However, one day, a man said to him, what has your humility gained for you? Where have you benefited? To which the supposedly humble man replied, stupid one, what is the matter with you? For can you not see that having learned humility, I am now a perfect man? About this time, Jesus came upon two disciples, arguing as to which of his teachings could be retained in their hearts. Jesus said, your argument can be like two wives. One is old and one is young. The old one kept pulling out the dark hairs on her husband's head, while the young one kept pulling out the white hairs. So he became bald, having no hair at all. Then both women said, look, we have a bald-headed husband. One day, a disciple who had been to buy provisions returned, saying, I took down a diligently prepared book of sayings, delightful to the ear, but men took it from me and they ripped it apart. Surely the wrath of Yahweh will strike them. Hearing this, Jesus called the man over to him. Come over here. And he said this, a girl once diligently collected colorful seeds and threaded them into a necklace. But when she put it on, a youth came along and pulled it, scattering the carefully gathered seeds. She ran to her father, expecting him to chase the youth and chastise him. But the father did nothing. Later that evening, he gave her a beautiful necklace of rare gems, which he had bought earlier, intending to surprise her. And then she knew why he had not bothered with the young man or been concerned about the necklace of seeds. Jesus said to those around him, many things will befall you. Life is difficult, but so life is meant to be this way. Only timber well seasoned is fit for the carver's hand. A carpenter once sent his 2 sons to the forest to cut wood. And they came upon a mighty tree, one without branches going straight up, with sound and well-grained wood. One son said, this tree's too big. The task of cutting it's too difficult. Let us find another one, which is easier to deal with. And the other son said, no, let us take only the best. But the first one goes further into the forest and comes upon a tree that's partly rotten and soft. Now he, with the rotten timber, comes back home first, while the other comes 2 days later. If the carpenter is wise, he rejects the timber brought in first, and he will chastise his son, rewarding the other when he returns. But if the carpenter be pleased with the first son's early return, accepting the timber and building with it, placing it as a beam for support. So the upright post breaks, and then the beam falls, killing a man. How shall the blame be appointed? The easy way is rarely the best. Jesus said, "Do not fear the hostility of men, nor the wiles of the world. Rise above your conditions. Be like the water lily which rises out of the mud, up through the murky waters into the sunlight above. Strive always to rise above your circumstances, for in striving you gain strength. The man whose path through life has been easy is never as good as one whose path has been difficult. Life has two purposes only, to test and to teach, and for that, earth is perfect. Regard each other as brothers, cherishing in sickness and supporting in trouble. Never praise yourself, and if you have virtues, let others find them. Be careful with whom you associate, for if a man enters a tannery, though he carries nothing away, a bad smell will follow him. No man is so important that he is above the need to work. If it becomes necessary to dress hides in the marketplace, then do it with a cheerful heart. Even the rich must do something, for idleness is the rust of time. Judge no man otherwise than you would wish to be judged. Once a young woman was carried off and placed in a whorehouse in another country. Her father sent 2 men to ransom her, and when they came to the whorehouse, one remained outside and the other went in. When he who went in came out, he said to the other, "What do you think I was doing in there?" The other replied, "Why, you were negotiating the woman's ransom." Even so, you should judge favorably, with the scales being weighed down favorably. Yes. Jesus taught his disciples this: all things a man has, his talents and his skills, are gifts bestowed by the grace of Yahweh. The inheritance received by anyone should be regarded as something received in trust, and it is true that if they deal with it wrongfully or selfishly, payment will be required. One of the greatest of life's tests is the challenge of wealth or position, and few are those who successfully meet it. Therefore, do not envy those with wealth and status unless they deal with it wisely. Otherwise, pity them, for they have failed to rise above their test. A wayfarer once came into an inn. Finding no one there, went to the eating hall, where he found a table with all the good food, many kinds, and drinks. So he sat down and helped himself, thinking, "No one else is here, so all this must be mine, and if it's mine, I can do with it as I please." However, when the innkeeper returned from where he had been, the wayfarer could not escape the accounting. The rich are responsible for providing the needs of the poor, whether by work or food. This, above all, is the prime responsibility of wealth. And if a rich man says that he cannot do this, then his riches witness against him. For if a poor man has a loaf of bread, he will share it with he who has none. And a beggar at the door of a poor man receives better treatment than he does at the doors of the rich. Yet the rich have the most to give, and this is the sin of the wealthy. Riches of themselves are not sinful. It is what they make of men that brings them into ill repute. If they were properly regarded as something permitting the possessor to study the books of wisdom and to redress the wrongs of the poor, then they would serve a good purpose. Let the rich ask themselves sincerely, "Am I not wealthy because of my lack of charity and the exploitation of others? Is it not because I love myself more than my neighbors? It is dangerous to be near a man without wisdom. He is like a tree with many fine branches, but few roots. The winds of adversity blow, and he is uprooted. Choose your friends with great care, measuring them against the words of wisdom. The man who is himself a good friend will never lack friends. But those who think they have many friends have none. The loneliest person is one living for himself alone. But it is better to be lonely than to be in a bad company. Jesus said, "It is not unseemly to take pride in your strength, but never become vain, for in strength you are not superior to the beasts. If the standard is to be the ability to bear a heavy burden, a donkey can carry more than any of you. An elephant is stronger than a score of men, while a camel has more stamina than any man. Strength and stamina are good things, seen in their right perspective, but they can be a heavy handicap on the path of spiritual development, particularly if they lead to arrogance and inconsideration for others. Strength, like riches and knowledge, is a good thing of itself if properly used, but for most, the test is too great." Some disciples came to Jesus and asked whether they should not withdraw into the wilderness, where they would dedicate their lives to Yahweh. And then Jesus said, "What use would my teachings be in the wilderness? Are you going to save rocks from sin or convert camels? Will you enlighten the wind or give wisdom to mirages? Where is the benefit if what you learn cannot be put into practice? Learning and good conduct must go hand in hand, and the greatest wisdom is that which teaches men to live in harmony. They who seek to escape the tests and trials of life are cowards. Are you going to withdraw from the conflict through lack of courage, standing quietly by while the wicked swallow up the good?" The disciples said, "Adonai, are you bringing strife or peace? Do you prepare us for battle? Are we to rally the people?" And Jesus said, "Do you still not understand? I am a man of peace, and I unsheathe only the sword of the Spirit. This is not the easy way, for it is less difficult to change things with the sword than with soft words. And those who oppose us understand that better. But let only those who would use weapons with courage talk about soft words and peace. Otherwise, better men will justifiably scorn them as cowards. Cowards talk about peace, and brave men talk about war. But I tell you that when brave men talk peace and cowards are sent into war, there will be no more strife, and a new day will dawn." A disciple named Micaiah said to Jesus, "Adonai, teach us how to love one another, without malice or envy, with goodwill and forbearance." Jesus said, "The first step is to love yourself less, and by doing this, you will find more love to give. If any say, 'I like being loved,' that person is wrong, for rather you should say, 'I like loving.' Do not seek to take love, but to give it. For have I not said it is better to give than to receive?" Another disciple, who had believed in bodily resurrection, said, "Adonai, what proof can be given that there is a life beyond the grave?" Jesus answered, "There is proof to those worthy of it. But if it were a manifest certainty as a reward for a good life, how would the hypocrites and those who would do nothing without payment be found out. If uncertainty and doubt were removed from life, then it would be of less value for its purpose. Things are as they are because they must be. If you want proof, become worthy of it. You will not be denied it, even here. But you must seek diligently. Nothing comes easily, and this least of all. Before they departed from that place, a disciple said to Jesus, Adonai, now that we go to take up our burdens, tell us how to avoid wrongdoing. Jesus said, were you able to avoid all wrongdoing and sins? Such is the known weakness of men that I fear you would fall into another one, that is of false pride. Look at the falsely pious ones who pride in their righteousness. This is not the least of sins. Having taught in this manner and said these and many other things, Jesus departed from that place on the mountainside, and he went down to carry the tidings concerning the coming rule of Elohim to the people.